Hey, welcome to LMAC Live. This is episode 2. You can see I've got a little bit different visual setup here. I've got a screen where I can type some content and my own self here, smaller. What we're going to do is talk about a list of topics that are important to cover in LMAC. This is going to be a short episode this time because lots of reasons. I'm trying to, get used to this whole streaming and LMAC Live thing. And so there's a couple of things that I keep having to do where I'm checking to see, have I appropriately started the audio and all that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go and start talking about the different topics that we have available. The first thing I want to do is come in here. Okay. We talked last time about the origins of LMAC, and one of the really, really big things that you're going to see me touch on a bunch is the first law of polity. That's my first law of polity, I guess I should say. It's not universally known or accepted or something, which is that people pervert everything, that's what we do. That's part of our nature. Is we take something that's good, or at least is what it is, and then we turn it into something else. And that usually happens because of various desires that we have or things like that. Over time, that'll mutate. It's not bad if something changes. I'm not saying that. I do have a conservative lean for what how I look at the world, but that's the idea of conservatism there, for me at least, is that you conserve the good. And, as far as some kind of liberalism or anything like that, I'm for all of that. I'm for making free everyone in the ways that are helpful to human flourishing, and conserving whatever things need to be conserved to maximize, again, human flourishing. And of course, I have some philosophical or theological underpinnings about what I think human flourishing is and how to best facilitate it, but I am not the only person in the world, so let's make a country. I let it go out. So I think that if you can hear that, that's just my lighter. I have no idea if YouTube has something about cigars. We'll find out, I guess. The smoke, I have a couple. This is my studio's in my garage, and sometimes there are a few bugs that get in at night. Smoke helps with that. Plus, I like it. All right. So, what we're going to do here is look at some key topics. Like I said, topic number 1, the first law of polity is that, nope, not that. Another word that we could use there for pervert is corrupt. Got a new keyboard for this. It's a nice, quiet keyboard, but I'm not used to it yet, so whatever. Okay. And I've got a AI hinter that I use for code and stuff, so it's trying to give me ideas here. I'm not using them. So that's a really important topic. What we want to do is talk about that at some point. What I'm hoping we do is get feedback from you guys about what we're doing. What do you want to see an episode about and talk about? There's a couple of really big things about that. The first one, and one really important one, is the Constitution, and I really don't mean that the Constitution in the United States Constitution. What I mean to say is, if we're going to be making a country, and I think the idea of a constitution is a really good one. It's a positive move in humanity, largely because it produces a framework for clarity around how we relate to each other. I think it's probably not best to view it as a contract. It's not really a contract being entered into. It's more of a declaration of the rules and decorum of social exchange, and importantly for us, and this is from the American Constitution, about the relationship between the people and the government. There's this thing that happens. This is one of the ways that people pervert everything. I don't know if this is strictly an Americanism. I don't think so. I think it's probably somewhat ubiquitous for people. But we tend to give personal identity to corporate structures. Corporate here not meaning companies in the sense of businesses, but rather just any kind of organization of people. This is totally reasonable and is possibly unavoidable, but it has some really negative impacts for a lot of things. One of the big things that happens is that we start talking about the government as though it were independent of the people. And that's true and false. It's true because no individual person, in a government like America's, no individual person embodies the will of all the people. That is not the case in monarchs and for monarchs and other kinds of dictatorships. They have a single person who does actually embody the will. So the Queen of England, the Pope, different kinds of other figures like that, in some real way are the incarnation of the whole, right? In the case of the Pope, right, the claim isn't that he's the incarnation of God, but it is something like he's the manifestation of, well, not the guy, but when he's speaking for the church, for God, when he's speaking for the church, really, he is, in a manner of speaking, almost the church identity proper. I don't know what, we can look at that sometime if that's of interest to people about Catholicism. It doesn't exactly matter. Catholicism does happen to have a fairly firm religious hierarchical system that culminates into a single personal identity. Other religious systems don't. Many others don't. But if we want to talk about things like the Queen of England, King of England, I guess we just had a queen for so long, right? One of the things we can talk about is the fact that that person, in manifesting a will historically before Parliament and all that, before the modern mostly democratic-ish version of England, that person expressed will that manifested as national movement. So it's a big deal. So we get to a constitution and we say, this is the constitution, this is what constitutes us as a nation. That idea that we're getting constituted as a nation is really important because it is possible to act outside of that which constitutes us as a nation. When we do that, I say nation. Okay, that's probably, yeah, I can pull it in as a topic. All right. Countries versus nations versus states, let's call it. versus lands, other kinds of organizational things like that. Nations are people akin by birth, and when you act outside of the constitutional bounds, you're doing a kind of thing that is aligning yourself to people differently than the explicitly declared structure of how that group of people aligns. We'll talk about that. I guess I should be careful not to go too far into this. Actually, yeah, taxation is a good one. Okay, the AI really wants to talk about taxation. Taxation's a great one. We need to talk about in terms of our constitution, the constitution for LMAC, for the country we're making. Right, let's make a country, LMAC. In terms of the constitution for that, we need to talk about a couple of different things. Let's talk about the organizational structure, and in particular that there are a collection of states. I've done a lot of this work, by the way. I have a lot of elements of a constitution ready. I am working on getting that open for public discussion and for the LMAC movement to refine those ideas. They come from a certain amount of wisdom that I have over the years that may not be the world's most profound wisdom in every domain, right? So we want to get lots of people contributing, and especially lots of people with expertise and a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding, and more importantly, a lot of wisdom with an aligned interest in human flourishing. Although the mechanisms of human flourishing and the interpretations of human flourishing don't have to specifically be mine. I'm not strongly attached to my way in this. I'm just facilitating us doing something good. So the organizational structure, a collection of states. We need to talk about the relationships between states. There it is. Go for it. Yeah. We need to talk about the relationships between people of a state and the state. We need to talk about relationships between let's call it groups of states and other you know what, I'm going to leave this out for now. We also have a really important element that's different in LMAC than at least anything I know of, which is there is need, I think. Sorry, it's about to go out. There is need for a role. I'm going to put the people. All right. This is, and then we have this idea of also in America we have this idea of federalism, right? We've got a federated set of interests, and then we've got a federal government, and what's the LMAC interpretation of the federal government? All right. So we need to talk about, you know what, also between the relationship, what was I going to say? The relationship between, peoples of multiple states. Multiple states. There we go. And some other stuff. I'm going to put some other topics in here. police, military, that hierarchy that goes Constitution has a lot of stuff in it. There's a lot of different ways that under organizational structure that can go. What I'm going to actually do here is I need to go states, territories, loss of statehood. These are topics that I already have in mind, so that's why I know them. They're not just coming to me off the top of my head. We're going to talk about something like the essential rights of people. This could be thought of as something like basic human rights or something like that. All right. I put those in quotes because neither of those are great ways of thinking about it, but we got to do something. Why does this keep going out? What am I doing? I don't know. I'm going to leave it. All right, no more. So, essential rights of people. We need to talk about between people and their land. Geopolitics, right? That's what that's all about. There's some really important stuff there. One of the key elements of this is that states in America are too big. Like, what in the world, right? Why should it make any sense at all for the people in the Piedmont region of North Carolina, for example, has direct legislative influence on the people of the Blue Ridge Mountain area. And what I'm going to put in there something like this: historical organizations of people and land, such as city-states, states, empires, I don't know. There's a word I'm looking for somewhere else, but I'll get to it later. So land distribution. A really important one is property ownership. Legal rights. I guess that's really close to you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this guy here. I'm going to put human flourishing up here. Whatever. Might as well, This, I don't know if it needs to go in that hierarchy up there. Taxation. And property ownership. Is here. Other important topics. I'm just going to throw some stuff in here. You know what? Actually, I'm going to pull some of those back out. Yeah, I'll keep those. There's some other ones, such as imminent global catastrophe, imminent domain. There's another set of topics that actually are really important, which is significant Supreme Court decisions, judiciary in general, and in particular, judiciary intention with legislation. I'll actually put it in legislators and tech executors. Judiciary has a lot of stuff about in the end, interpretation matters. Interpretation of law, interpretation of all kinds of things. And so wisdom is needed. There, you can't have a judgeless system. You can. It'll become oppressive fast because it becomes a game that people can, a system that people can game, a game that they can play. Yeah, that's a great one actually. The People's Republic of China. I'm going to call it the all right. Let's talk about fire, police. We need to talk about utilities, which mean things like electricity now is how a lot of people think and probably should. Water, rights of movement. I'm just going to pull these up here so we can get them up nice and tall here. You know what I'm going to do? Let me center this on my screen a little bit. All right. Rights of movement actually is, where did I put essential rights of people? I'm going to put this right to property, and the special note here, philosophically, the right to property is probably the single most fundamental core right that anybody has. That doesn't mean, it's really not the right to property as such. It's probably better to call it something like the rights of ownership. And what that means here is more profound than owning land. That's a big deal. Owning, a piece of matter or something. But there's other things that people own, like their bodies, their ideas, and their associations and relationships that are essential to human flourishing. One of the key elements of, just as an example of this, we can talk about this more, but thought about lucidly, the free speech is a derivative of property rights. It's the idea of, it's actually a derivative of property rights and some other things, but association and some bits and pieces. But there are elements of free speech that have to do, like about coerced or compelled speech, that have to do with the right to having your own, owning your own ideas and beliefs. So we'll get to that. That's another topic we'll talk about. All right. So more things. Let's look at uh, air. I'm going to actually switch from utilities to utilities and resources, because there are other things like the EM bands, electromagnetic bands. I'll write it out to be. This is things like what our FCC manages, that are, in some manner of speaking, limited resources, limited shared resources is really what it is, that are essential to the world. We can talk about space, we can talk about internet, we can talk about airspace, which is a little different than space in the way I mean it. We can talk about sound, light, sound / noise. This has to do with, the right to make noise and the right of other people not to experience it. There's a whole section in here about that idea that your right to swing your fist ends where my face begins, right? You may have heard that quote before. There's a lot to talk about there. Let's see. I have police in here. I have police in a couple of places. I'll put it here. We're going to put, instead of police, underneath police, we're going to put monopoly on force. This also has to do with military. Military is a little bit different. Military is for external purposes. Police is for internal purposes. Police have a monopoly on force against the citizenry. Military has a monopoly on force I did, didn't I? Let's talk about some more. We've got immigration, death penalty, corporal punishments in general, scale of force in justice. So this has to do with appropriateness of punishment to offense. We need to talk about corruption of justice, and importantly, in terms of police, judiciary, legislation. There's probably some more for this. We need to talk about social tolerance and intolerance. And actually, as a broader topic of that, I'll put it, it is broader, but I'll put it underneath it for now. Maybe I won't. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to do this. Okay. What else do we need? We need to talk about inheritance. We need to talk about monarchy, oligarchy, bureaucracy, plutocracy, democracy, republics, representative governance in general. I'm going to call this all modes of governance. And then I'm going to go, what are some of the other topics I have here? Important LMAC topics are going to be fashion, popular demand, war, and those are subtopics of that include invasion, invasion, peace, conflict, the end of the world, the end of the world. It's like I'm like ChatGPT is trying to give me some slam poetry or something. Invasion, defense, just war. What's not military, but militia, the draft, foreign threats, domestic threats. Okay. Let's go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit to this, to fashion. I'm going to change that a little bit to popular sentiment. Fashion doesn't necessarily mean clothing and such. Okay, some economics. We need to talk about money, wealth, inheritance. I don't mind something appearing more than once in the list. Money, wealth, inheritance, wage, taxes. Sorry, there's a little bug. All right, we need to talk about, let's see, things like voting. We need to talk about in that things like gerrymandering. Oh yeah, hey, look at that. Theocracy. That opens up actually a big sorry, let me do this. Gerrymandering. Who has the right to vote? Super important topic. Okay. We need to talk about, and I guess I should do this, corruption, undervoting. All right. Economics, voting, modes of governance, popular demand, popular sentiment, part of that. Those were, I think, together. Okay. We need to talk about things like bigotries. That can be racism, sexism, you know, whatever other ism you want. Not want, but no, okay. I forgot. I'm using Markdown format, so I'll do it that way. Okay. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the arena of crime, which is not there. So let's do that. Crime. Murder. Theft. The really big stuff. I'm going to include other things that are super important, like I want to be careful about this for YouTube and audiences, but children, as victims of crime, also children as perpetrators of crime. Like that, there's a special case for basically all of that. Sexuality is an important thing. There's a lot of discussion to have around normative sexuality, age of consent. Actually, a whole big thing here is just consent in consent in principle, and one of the things about consent in principle is that consent isn't everything. There's a lot that's consent is obviously super important for a lot of stuff, but there are some things that people can't consent to, ought not to be able to consent to, and similar. So that's something worth talking about. There are other topics like, let's see, public health, things like environmental protection, which I would actually put up here in the neighborhood of utilities and resources. Poverty. Poverty is, I mean, all of these, you know, there's a lot to talk about here for every single one of these. So, let's see. Related to war, but not exactly. National security. I already talked about immigration and emigrate, or I listed, I should say, immigration and emigration as major issues. There are related things to that. Where did I put that? Yeah, here we go. Let's call it I was going to say punishment because of crime and punishment type of stuff. But what I really want is more like, not punishment, but sentencing, I'll call it. Okay, so I've got corporal punishment, death penalty, prison, time. I'm going to organize these all a little bit later, but I'll in a different thing. Maybe I'll do it now. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say about it. Nope. Here's a big list of topics that may or may not be benefit from being organized into a tree. Oh, apparently I had a whole bunch of white space at the bottom of the file, which I did on purpose. Now I remember. What I'm going to do is this pertains to the discussion of the creation of a new country. Please organize these into a sensible hierarchy without leaving, I don't have my glasses on, so without leaving anything out. Don't leave any of the items out. Just reorganize into one or more trees. All right. Let's see what it says. Okay, and it gave me a little bit of commentary about that. I don't actually know for sure that doesn't leave anything out. I don't really care. Let's go ahead and actually give it to me as a markdown file. So what I'm going to do here, while that's thinking about that, is okay, sure. So I have 114 lines there. Let's go to donk. Let's look what that looks like. All right. Oops. Bloop. $112. I'm cool with that. It seems like it's largely there. There might have been some duplicates that my unique didn't capture. Let's go, just because I'm curious. No, I don't want awk. I want tr. Ooh, who's going to test me here? I might not be using tabs. No, I'm not. All right. in that case, let's do, that's fine. $111 versus, okay. So fair enough. Okay, let's go back into here. I think that's a pretty good set to start with. There are a couple of things like public office, housing, the mentally unfit. That's a real, we got to deal with the fact that there are people who are not fit to take care of themselves in various ways. And, we want to treat them as the real people that they are. And some other ones. Let's do a couple more. These are a little more on the potentially problematic side for some people, but whatever. Feminism, patriarchy. These are things that people could care about. Religion, including religious freedom. Importantly, Christianity, Islam, I single out Christianity and Islam because, because that is the biggest looming conflict in the world. There's going to be something like that, in my opinion. And so it's relevant now. And as much as I'm interested in timelessness in this, timeliness is also really important. So, is that there? Okay. Hold on. My mic is a little funny. There. Okay. What else do we need? Let's see. Feminism, patriarchy, obviously men and women, super, super important. In as much as that's fundamental to humanity. Let's go with decency. A couple other things. The tragedy of the commons, which I'll put under here. What else? I think that's pretty good for now. There's one thing here. States and territories and removal of statehood. And part of that is the I was going to say temporality of states, but I really mean the limitations on statehood. And those are limitations in time, in space, in population. There's some other ones too. These are all topics that I have done some work on, and there's more work to do. All right. What else? I think that's probably good for now. I actually am fairly confident. I have to go. I have some notes and I have some scattered papers. But I'm fairly confident that actually there's one in this. I was going to say I'm fairly confident that I have about another 30% to add to this, but I don't know if I put this before, but I'm going to go. Other, I mean, there's whatever. Race is covered in some other parts of this. What else do we need? I'm going to call it there. It is 9:52, 10 o'clock. I'm going to be good to go there. So thanks. Episode 2. Here's what I would like, if you are willing. You millions of people watching. I think it's 5 right now, subscribers. By the way, thank you so much to the 5 subscribers. I know each one of you by name and am grateful. I appreciate each of you guys, and thanks. Here's what I'd like for you to do. Either text me, but maybe better, put it in the comments. Probably some algorithm thing I don't really know about at the moment or care about. What are topics of the most significant interest to you here? I'll use that as a poll about things we could talk about next. We won't necessarily do them in the order that they're requested, because it's possible that it makes sense for some to be done before others, or that I've also already done a lot of prep on one, so it'll be better to have a different conversation about those later. But thanks, I really appreciate it, and look forward to the next session. I'm working on getting onto a schedule of 3 per week of these. They won't all be live, and I'm going to try to chop these live into shorter clips that we can do as parts of more digestible chunks of about half an hour. So thanks so much. Have a good night. I'm figuring out how to